What's going on, dudes and dudettes? Innocence here. And you know, this particular time of year is a very weird situation for a lot of console players. And I don't mean October in general, I just mean this specific time before the consoles launch. Because as I've said time and time and again on my channel, the upcoming generation of consoles has really blurred the lines for what exactly is the difference between a console and PC. Make no mistake, I'm still a proud member of the #PC Master Race, but as time has progressed, I've seen consoles make major strides to becoming more like PCs, specifically when it comes to adapting their traits and power. Now that's not to say that consoles and PCs have the same feature set or similar amounts of strength. I mean, first generation 8K gaming is now out on PC in the form of the RTX 3090, while the consoles are now just getting a reliable 4K in the form of the Xbox Series X and PS5. Sorry, small flex. But what the situation does say, as I've mentioned, consoles and PCs are becoming really close, not necessarily in DNA, but in execution. I mean, when you sit down and think about it, hypothetically, if you're an Xbox player and you wanted to buy a console to play your games by tomorrow, there used to be a time where your only option was to pick up this single current Xbox. You had no choice as to which console you could get because an Xbox game was an Xbox game, and an Xbox 360 game was an Xbox 360 game. It wasn't like a PC where the generation of your hardware didn't matter, and you honestly just rolled the dice with the minimum spec sheet every time you bought a game. That was terrifying. But the point is, when it comes to console gaming, one of the staple concepts that made it so popular in the first place was its simplicity. You didn't really have to buy any special hardware or accessories to take full advantage of your consoles. Game A worked with console A and Game B worked with console B. You plugged in either of those consoles into a wall and TV and you were up and ready to go. But taking a look at Microsoft's product stack, console gamers now have a choice, the same choice PC players have been making for decades now. With 4 different consoles across the entire lineup, you'll be able to get a console as cheap as sub $200 for the Xbox One S and $500 for the Xbox Series X. And with 2 years of guaranteed game releases for last gen promised by Microsoft after next gen launch, you really don't have anything to worry about when picking up these older consoles. But as all PC players will tell you, having this level of flexibility and choice as to how you're willing to experience your games comes with a bit of a trade-off, because with great power comes great responsibility. Now, what do I mean? And what the hell is this video about? Well, it's simple really. Consoles are becoming more like PCs, so that inadvertently means that some of the simplicity that developers like Microsoft and Sony have spent generation after generation cultivating will be lost for the sake of advancement. And well, what does that mean? It means that if you want to take full advantage of your new console, chances are you won't be able to continue using the TV/monitor you have now, and getting a new one won't be as simple as going to the nearest Target and picking out something pretty. And that's because these new consoles, as you've probably heard by now, are capable of pushing out a 4K resolution while gaming and frame rates upward of 120 at lower resolutions. Now, this means 2 things. Number 1, 80% of you watching this video right now probably need to upgrade your display, because odds are you're probably rocking that industry standard 60 Hz refresh rate, which unfortunately is not compatible with 120 FPS. And number 2, being console gamers, a lot of you guys probably don't even know what refresh rate is, and I'm sure a decent amount of you guys do, but the majority of console gamers probably won't, which ties in very well with what this video is about, to explain what refresh rate is and how it affects your gaming experience, and to also break all of you, yes, all of you watching this video right now, into 3 separate categories of display buyers and give you advice as to what you should be looking for in a display, and also to make sure you're not caught with your pants down when the next generation of consoles finally launch. Now, I did make a similar-ish video to this that explained how latency, tick rate, and refresh rate works about 5 months ago, but I've grown considerably since then, and I never really got into what kinds of displays you should be buying, which brings us to today. But if you happen to be interested in checking it out and gaining some more info, I'll link it in the description. So, refresh rate, what is it? And why is it integral to your TV/monitor buying process? Well, in layman's terms, refresh rate is how many frames your display can present a second, and it's not to be confused with frame rate, which is how many frames your console can render a second. So why is this difference important? Well, that's because generally speaking, refresh rate is the limiting factor. If your console is able to render 120 frames per second, but your TV is only able to display 60 of those frames in that same second, well then you'll only see 60 of those 120 frames and you'll essentially lose hard-earned performance. And you might be saying, well, Innocence, that just doesn't make any sense. What would that even look like? Don't our displays just work? Well, not necessarily. Let's take this display here as an example. Let's say every time you see this pulse around it, it has just refreshed its image, meaning that every time it pulses, it will actively search for the next frame of whatever you're doing to present on screen. Now enter the next generation of consoles, and let's say they're able to render frames twice as fast as this display is able to refresh. What do you think will happen once the console starts sending over those frames at such a rapid rate? Yeah, that's right. Nah, I'm just kidding. But it would result in what we PC players call dropped frames, or discarded frames that sadly never got a chance to be presented due to missing their refresh timing. And you might be thinking, wow, this absolutely sucks, and yeah, it definitely does, but that's just the reality we live in when it comes to things that could produce high frame rates. It just so happens that the rest of the world hasn't caught up yet. And if you happen to be curious, the opposite of this event, where the display refreshes faster than the console can render, results in what we PC players call repeated frames, where a single frame is displayed for multiple refreshes, you know, until it receives the next frame from your console. The extreme case of this is simply known as having low FPS, since your console or PC is struggling to put out enough frames for your display to refresh as a smooth experience, though most cases of repeated frames are nowhere near this bad. So with that explanation out of the way, I'd like to welcome you to what I call PC Gaming Boot Camp, where by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what monitors you should be looking for depending on your needs, and while you won't become a member of the #PC Master Race, you'll receive the honorary PC badge for finally having to worry about something else besides why your controller isn't charged. Congratulations, recruit. That was a joke, by the way, don't dissect the video. Jokes aside, now that you guys know what refresh rate is, it's time to break the bad news to you. Odds are a lot of you guys are gaming with 1080p 60Hz monitors, since the industry standard for the last 15 years has been a 60Hz refresh rate, meaning that if you didn't explicitly go out of your way to get something that isn't 60Hz when buying your last display, odds are it probably is just that, 60Hz, so you won't be able to take full advantage of your new console. But I guess that's why we're here, to show you how to solve the problem. So I'm going to break you guys up into 3 groups based on your needs and explain to you what you should be looking for in a new display. Group number 1, the family console gamer or the home theater users. These are the type of guys that have their console smack dab in the middle of their living room and either share both their TV and consoles with their families, or simply like having a big expensive display to watch movies and or Netflix. And if you're either one of these people, you probably don't want a small TV, since this replacement is going to be what your entire family uses, or you like to enjoy yourself a cinematic experience. This also means that you're probably not too keen on refresh rate, as visual fidelity is most likely more important to you. If it is, and you would rather have a higher resolution while sacrificing a bit of smoothness, then I guess you wouldn't need to upgrade, or you could pretty much go with any 4K panel out there that you see fit. All should get the job done just fine. But if you're someone who's more of a no sacrifice full send kind of guy, and you want a big 4K TV plus those high refresh rates, then I'd personally recommend either the Samsung 55-inch class Q70T, QLED 4K UHD HDR Smart TV, or almost anything in the LG C9 series. Just make sure it has HDMI 2.1 so you could actually take advantage of those higher refresh rates at 4K. Both recommendations of which will cost you a pretty penny. As it turns out, trying to be a home theater lover as well as a competitive gamer doesn't come too cheap, and the sucky part about it is, higher refresh rate 4K TVs don't start appearing until you get to the $1,000-ish plus price range. But I guess since you're probably going to be using it for much more than gaming, it's probably going to be worth it. And hey, if you were for a second thinking of getting a 1080p TV for the sake of higher refresh rates, stop it. It's 2020. Don't do that to yourself. Have some dignity, man. You could live without it. Anyways, on to group number 2, the ultimate competitive gamer who wants to squeeze out every last edge they can gain against the competition as they can. For you guys, I'd actually recommend a 1080p monitor, since you're going to be running everything at a higher refresh rate anyways. You guys are probably more focused on smoothness and reliability when compared to higher resolutions or graphical fidelity, and as a competitive person, you probably should be. And with news that the next generation of consoles will largely only be able to pull out 120 FPS at 1080p anyways, then that lower resolution panel with a low latency and low response time is what you should be looking for. So for these recommendations, I'm thinking of the Rainbow Six players or the Call of Duty players of the world. And don't feel bad, a lot of PC gamers actually choose to get these lower resolution panels too to gain the biggest competitive edge that they can. So don't feel like you're sacrificing anything if you choose to go down this route. And as for my personal recommendation, it actually differs depending on whether or not you're picking up a Series X or a PS5. And that's just because the Series X has been confirmed to support AMD's FreeSync technology, which is honestly a separate video in and of itself, but as a summary, FreeSync or adaptive sync dynamically adjusts the refresh rate of your display on the fly to match whatever your frame rate is at that instant. And what this does is pretty much ensures that every frame generated by your console never misses a timing, regardless of when the console produced said frame, giving you the most updated information on screen as can be. It also helps prevent screen tearing, which is when the generated image on your screen may be marginally split due to some technical error mumbo jumbo. So yeah, the Series X has been confirmed to support AMD's FreeSync technology, but the PS5 has not, and I'm not sure the PS5 ever will, though at this late in the game, I kinda doubt it. So for the Series X, I'll recommend a 1080p 27-inch or smaller monitor with a refresh rate of 144Hz or greater. Why 144 and not 120, you ask? Well, honestly, I've been asking that for years as well, and if anybody knows the answer, feel free to drop it down below in the comments. But for some reason, when it comes to gaming displays, 120Hz panels are practically never produced by any company. So we'll go to the next best thing, 144. This Xbox monitor should also have AMD's FreeSync technology if possible, and I'd personally recommend the Acer Nitro VG270 27-inch monitor, as I've had some experience with not this specific monitor, but this line in the past, and it also comes in at about $199, which isn't terrible. And for the PS5, which doesn't need FreeSync, I'd recommend you know, as hard as I tried, I couldn't find a 1080p high refresh rate monitor that doesn't have FreeSync, so I'm going to recommend one of them to the PS5 users as well, and you guys could just pray that this feature gets announced by Sony tomorrow or something, which it might very well happen, maybe, probably not, but maybe. So for you guys, I'd recommend the Asus TUF Gaming VG24 VQ 24-inch monitor, which comes in at about $180-ish. And since both of these monitors have FreeSync, Xbox users, feel free to pick your poison. And PS5 users, you guys could also pick the last one as well. So before we move on to the final group of people, I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably sitting down and thinking, please let the next group be a budget group, please let the next group be a budget group, please let the next group be a budget group. And to you guys, I'm sorry, the next group is not a budget group. Welcome to the world of PC gaming, where literally everything you do, including breathing, seems to cost an arm and a leg. But all things considered, I'm not going to let you budget guys go without at least one super budget friendly option. And for that, I turn you guys towards the $99 Asus Vs228h, a 22-inch 1080p monitor that's really good for desks and still comes with a 75Hz refresh rate, so you could at least see a 15 FPS visual game over the current generation of consoles. It's actually one of the best selling monitors on Newegg, so I presume a lot of you guys might go with this one. But don't feel like you have to, I'm just a guy behind the screen. There are actually tons of monitors in the $99 to $130 price range that have similar, maybe slightly better specs, so feel free to do some shopping around. But this one, a lot of people seem to trust, which is why I'm putting it in this video. Now we come to the final group of people, the best of both worlds buyer, which just so happens to be the category I personally align myself with. So who is the best of both worlds buyer? Well, these people are the guys that want a higher resolution than 1080p, but don't want to drop a kidney on 4K. They also are the people who definitely want a competitive edge in gaming, but again, don't want to game at 1080p. So what display is right for them? Well, for this kind of buyer, you'd have to go with a 1440p or 2K monitor with a 144Hz refresh rate, so that you're able to have a little bit of that crisp higher resolution without losing too much of a competitive edge if you decide to drop down and play in 1080p for a casual round of Call of Duty or Rainbow Six. And for this task, I'm actually going to recommend both of the monitors I myself was considering getting in the future, but decided not to because I don't need it. I really don't need it. Anyways, I'm talking about the Asus TUF Gaming VG27AQL1A 27-inch monitor, which comes in at around $480. Try saying that 3 times fast. And for those of you guys who want a slightly cheaper option, I'd go with the Acer, I'm not even going to try pronouncing that, which is currently on sale at Newegg for $279. I would also recommend the monitors I'm currently using, but I'm pretty sure Dell has stopped making them, so the ones that are left out in the wild now have have ridiculously inflated prices. Like, I bought these things at around $399 each when I got them, but now you can only find them for like $700 plus, which is obviously ridiculously overpriced. But with the final recommendation made, that's going to bring us to the end of the video, which covered why you should upgrade your display for the next generation of consoles, as well as gave some of my opinions as to which type of monitor/display you should go for, depending on the type of gamer you are. I should say, however, that what I mentioned in this video are just my personal recommendations, so they may be a bit tailored to what I would look for in a display. So if you're a bit nitpicky with your specs, or are one of those people that have to know exactly what they're buying, which honestly we all should be, then I'd still recommend doing a bit of your own research before purchasing. But to help get you started, I'll also include some displays that I didn't mention in this video along with the others down in the description, just so that you have a nice basis to start branching out and could get a feel for what a decent display should look like. And with that said, ladies and gents, that truly brings us to the end of the video. Let me know what you thought of it down below in the comments. Was it informative, helpful, trash? I'm open to all kinds of feedback. Okay, dudes and dudettes, if you liked the video, leave a like. If you disliked the dislike, and be sure to subscribe so that you never miss a future upload on the channel. Oh, and hit that bell notification button if you're so inclined. I've been Innocence, you've been the audience, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.